everybody, let's take a seat. Welcome, welcome. All right, welcome everybody to the, what year is it? 2025 NHSGA graduation ceremony. Just a quick overview. The 6-week program, 2 weeks of class work for every student. 1 week where they do a quick, we call it a lightning round game, which is really meant to help them understand the development process. In the last 3 weeks, they create an original game from scratch. They go through a pitch process where they pitch ideas to the faculty and we choose which one they're going to build. And they spend the last 2.5 weeks actually building it. And today what you're going to see are presentations by each team of the game they built. They'll talk a little bit about their process. They may mention things that challenge them. They're certainly going to mention things that they're proud of. Each student spends a little bit of time talking about their work. We just go top to bottom, team by team. If we're on schedule, we might take a break in the middle, just to let people stretch their legs a little bit. We'll see how that goes. Sometimes we do, sometimes we run a little late. It's sort of, we play it by ear a little bit. And so, without further ado, is Team 1 ready? Yes? No? Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll start off with Team 1. I'll pass it off to Colin and the TAs. Thank you.
All right, so, was this not working? Kicking us off, I hope you're ready for some donuts, because it's Team 1's Donut Duel.
So, as you guys heard, we're Team 1, and our game is Donut Duel. I'm Piper, the producer and one of the programmers.
Hi, I'm Sham, the one programmer.
I'm Ashir, also a programmer.
I'm Alexa, an artist.
I'm Shuhan, the sound designer.
And I'm Cece, the other artist. So what exactly is Donut Duel? Donut Duel is a four-player jousting game on the Jamadrome. In our game, you will play as a knight and a horse, one person controlling the knight and one person controlling the horse. Your goal is to knock your opponent off by using power-up donuts and your lance in order to smack them off their horse. Story-wise, your goal is to impress the princess by winning the joust because it's the king's birthday and you can win his favor. Here is a quick video showing our game. Okay, can somebody request for the princess? Yeah. So now that you've seen what our game looks like, how does it actually work? So our game starts in a starting scene with a starting animatic. After that, it goes to our title screen where players can choose to spin a spin wheel to pull up a tutorial that tells them how to play their character and also what each of the power-up donuts does. Then they can press their button in order to ready up. Once all players are readied up, it'll go into our game scene. Our game is played in 3 rounds where best of 3 wins. In our game scene, there will be a short pause before each of the rounds to show a replay of the previous round, the round score, and also give a time for players to recollect and reset. Once a player has won, it will go to our ending scene. In our ending scene, a short animatic will play depending on which team has won. After that, there will be text showing who has actually won the game, and players can choose to either ready up again or let the time run out and the game close.
Okay, on to movements. So, this is the original horse sprites that we were using before interims. You can see one main issue with it is that their mane and tail are the same color, which made it pretty difficult to tell which way they were rotating, especially when things were moving pretty fast. Our solution for this was to have the mane be slightly darker than the tail, which allowed for better directionality.
As for the actual movement of the horse is always moving forward, but it can even change its direction using the controls of the geometry.
These are the knight sprites. You can see the different layers there. So the first part is the upper body of the knight. It rotates independently from the legs, which are fused onto the horse sprite to allow better movement. And the lance is its own layer under the knight, but above the horse. You can see that it's a lollipop because everything is candy themed.
As for the movement of the knight, its location is locked to that of the horse so that it is always riding it. And it can also rotate independently of the horse, as Alexa said. However, its rotation is constricted to a 180-degree arc, so that the knight just doesn't keep on rotating on top of the horse because that's highly unrealistic. We also wanted to add an attacking feature to the player. So initially this was planned to be just a player speeding up. However, this was cancelled because this was too similar to the speed power-up. Also, during the base gameplay, it was very hard to hit the other player without getting hit yourself, which is why we changed it to something like this instead, where the knight is able to throw the lance a little bit forward to try and hit the player before taking it back.
There's also a sound play during attacks, so there's a metal clashing sound to simulate medieval armors, and also a stabbing sound to show one player lose their health.
So, in order to fight each other, the knights are going to need donut power-ups. And these are the 6 that our team has created, one flavor for each member of our team, and this is all of the buffs that they give the knights.
They also have different sound effects. The one just plays the sound effects for Sissy's donut, the heart donut.
And this is the princess, the actual character that throws these donuts in game. We wanted to integrate her into there, not just as a motivation. So you can see that she has 3 main animations, especially because she's swirling. We wanted to model her skirts off of a peppermint.
And as for the donut spawning, we essentially pick a random one of the 6 donuts and spawn them on top of the princess before throwing them out onto the field. The difficult part about this was synchronizing the princess throwing and the donut spawning so that it gives the illusion that the princess is actually throwing the donuts instead of them being 2 completely separate systems.
Talking about the donut system, this is a picture that player will see on their horse side. This is the inventory UI. This system is designed to be keep player have more control of the game, as well as having them have a clear view of what's happening there. This is donut effect that player will see if they apply the donut and having effects on the player to let them see, oh, they use the donut and also for opponent side. This is an example of the teleporting donut.
So moving on to the environment of our game, this is the arena that we have. We have 2, a cross-shaped one and a oval-shaped one, which is a tiebreaker map, which reduces the area, forcing players to hit each other slightly more often. We have 2 raised platforms on which the king and princess stands on. And this is an animation for the king and his sprinkle cannon. Basically, the cannon launches sprinkles onto the arena, which act as obstacles, and this makes the game slightly more strategic and harder.
Okay, moving on to world building and polishing. One thing we did was add animatics at the start and end of the game. The first one that plays adds context as to why exactly this game is happening. It's the King's Birthday Joust, and you are participating as a knight. The second one is an end scene that's customized to which knight wins. There's a cyan one and a pink one. You can see them here. They're a bit sped up. We then worked on a tutorial for each of the players. You can see that the blurbs are customized based on whether you're a horse or a knight, and the highlighted text denotes what team you're on.
And here are some more UI elements that we designed. We have lettering and numbers and also a heart banner that shows how many lives you have and connects the two people from the same team together. We have improved buttons to tell players how to press to ready up and how to spin the wheel for a tutorial to pop up.
We also implemented a replay system. Replay systems are a staple of any party game, and we wanted our game to have one as well. Our goal was to have players be able to tell who lost the round and also who on their team caused them to lose the round. Very important information to know.
For the sound part, there is also an overview for all the sound effects. So like I separated all the sound effects into diegetic and non-diegetic part and separate them and apply them in different ways. And there's a music from a Japanese game that I was inspired. I kind of want to like imitate similar like playful and also energetic mood. So this is the start screen music I made. And this is the gameplay music. During this music, I use marimba as the main instrument to keep all the melody not very consistent, so like it's kind of active, and also there is like percussion or clapping sound in the background, and also I still use like classical instruments like violin and cello to keep all the themes still like classical and match our jousting theme. There's also end-screen music, so all of them are composed in B flat major just to keep all the music style consistent. And there's also sound effects when each round starts just to make it sound like actual jousting and an actual competition. And we also want to add some funny parts into our game. So we invite our TA to friendly record our voice line for the knight when they're heavily hit or just lose all the health. So one of them is the pink knight. Oh, sorry, this one is the cyanide. The pink knight for some reason is not playing. Yeah.
So while we face many challenges, especially working with a new platform, we're really proud of the work that we've put out and our finished product. Thank you for listening.
No, we will provide a recording of this afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
And now, a team that's game has wrapped its web around my heart, and I hope yours. Team 2.
Good morning, America. We're Team 2, and I'll bring you on our journey to the nest. I'm Min, producer and programmer.
I'm Sahil, a programmer.
I'm Zijin, an artist.
I'm Harry, an artist.
I'm Tristan, a programmer.
I'm Daniel, a sound designer.
Our initial idea is to make a local multiplayer game, where two players are bound on a string, and they must cooperate to move through obstacles, fight enemies, and protect a car. This is our demo.
designed for our main character Arabella, and here is also some of the reference art we used for her model and her animations to show you her character.
The first part of the game we made was the player controller, because that's what the players are actually doing in the game. So each player has their own individual control scheme that they can use to control their character, and these control schemes are rebindable in the settings menu in case the default controls are awkward to use. Then the next part we made was the cart, because that is the focal point of the game. And so you want the cart to be mobile, so you made it so you could move it around with your string. You can also fling it at enemies to deal damage to them. When the cart takes damage, it will show on the cart by removing some layers and showing the eggs that are inside. And most importantly, when the cart dies, you die.
The string is the core mechanic of our game, and due to the complex requirements, we have to program all the mechanics of it ourselves. That include like string flipping, string simulation, applying force, and allowing players to pull objects and pull themselves. Players can also slingshot cards and also wrap around objects and deal extra damage to enemies. We will provide feedback when we stretch the string by making it thinner.
The next thing we made was the wave spawner. So enemies in this game spawn in waves, and each wave spawns enemies in packs. They're basically just small packs of enemies. Once the wave has spawned enough packs, it will spawn them every few seconds. It will stop spawning enemies until the player has killed all the enemies, in which case the wave will end and then the next wave will start.
Alright, so pre-interims, we designed 4 different enemies, each with their own abilities. We started off with the basic ant, it just moves straight towards the cart. It's simple, it's easy to fight against, so we made something a bit more complicated. We moved on to the sprinter ant. The sprinter ant will stalk around the cart, it's going around in circles until there's an opportunity, and then it will rush in towards the cart. And then we also have the honey pot, which explodes upon death or when it gets close to the cart, dealing massive damage. And also the zap ant, which lobbs projectiles that stun the player, which acts as more of like a support enemy.
Here are the pre-interims designs for our ants, and as you can see, they are color-coded for the players to have better visibility.
These ants all have voice lines, so I'll play randomly throughout the game. Thank you, Mason, for voice acting. Here's the regular ant. Here's a damage sound. And a death sound.
For our environments, we decided to go with the swamp theme, and in order to accomplish this, we referenced real plants from swamps, such as cattails, papyrus, swamp lilacs, and mangroves. Here's the assembled environment in Unity pre-interims with the cell shader applied, and we eventually decided to resize some of the models because you can see here they're kind of obstructed.
And then next was the interims. So this is halfway through the project. And here, we presented our current state of the game to the TAs, and then they gave us some feedback on what we could do to improve it.
For music, I think you heard some of the themes in the slideshow. We went for a more orchestral theme with driving drums and electric guitar in the back to provide that exciting feeling and more chaos. Here is also the title screen, which I cooperated with CJ on.
And here's the end screen, which has a contrasting sort of vibe. It's more depressing.
And we also made upgrades to add more variety to the game and give the players this progression. So how this works is once you've killed enough enemies, at the end of the wave, you'll get the choice between either fully healing your card or getting one of 3 permanent upgrades, of which there are 20 in the game. And so it adds this fun risk reward of do you want to heal your card and survive in the short term, or do you want to take one of these permanent upgrades to be stronger for the long term?
Here is a custom font we have made for our game, which is also used here in this presentation, and the assets we made for a card, which actually changes its appearance based on how much damage is taken.
In terms of more UI assets, we decided to make them spider themed, so you can see on the buttons, there's little spider icons, and we also themed our upgrade icons around the player Arabella.
We want to make the game infinitely replayable so you can have hours of fun and screaming at your friend. So we add a random path and a random map size with walls lined with bushes. Then we create random objects and obstacles and decorations in the map and troop around the map. The ground also expands as you move, so you always have grass at the bottom.
Alright, so after interims, we decided to design 3 more enemies just to add more variety in the game. We started off with the Ghost Moth. It's similar to the ant, except it faces through the string. It's only the other enemies that you have to wrap around and kind of strangle out. This one, you more hold the string over to damage it. Then we made the Flare Wake. It can burn the string with its tail. When it gets close to the cart, it will spin around, aiming its tail towards the cart. So you have to be careful when killing that one. And then the Beetle, another ranged projectile enemy that shoots projectiles from a distance towards the cart and will run away if you get close to it, though those projectiles can also be bounced back and used to damage other enemies.
So as the game gets more and more chaotic, we want our enemies to feel very distinct. One way we can do that is by having very simple designs and very simple color schemes. This not only helps make them very readable, also helps with the future animation process.
These enemies also have voice lines. I would thank Dylan again for making these. Is the
big enough for them.
and that sound. Here's also the enemy death sound for just any enemy death.
Here are the aforementioned animations. You can see they're very simple, but due to all the details like the mushrooms moving on their backs and the earwigs, antennas moving when it moves, we've given them a lot of life.
Alright, and then the final boss. The final boss will spawn 7 to 8 rooms into the actual game, which if the two players who are playing reach this point, they've clearly proven their skill in cooperation with each other, so we made it extra difficult. Its main attack is a spin attack. It chases after your cart while spinning around, shooting waves of projectiles in every direction around it. These projectiles deal massive damage to your cart, and have to be bounced back at the boss in order to damage it. And also, enemy spawning, to make it even more difficult. It will spawn enemies once in a while on the other side of you, forcing you to watch your back while also fighting the boss.
Here is the design we made for our boss, and we made her based on real-life photographs, which is why she is a construction worker, and she has a stinger that is also a drill.
The boss also has voice lines provided by me.
Try.
A damage sound.
Oh.
And a death sound.
No.
As you can see,
my children.
all these voice lines are pretty goofy, hopefully causing great fun for the players. It also has a drill sound when attacking, and an enemy spawning sound. And last but not least, boss music.
I watch your every move and
The boss will sing about its evil schemes when attacking the player, causing even more havoc and fun.
And here are the two assembled environments that we made. The tutorial room and the boss room, and all the rest of the environments in-game are procedurally generated.
So post-interims, we got feedback to add more feedback to the game. So here's some particle effects, and we also polished up the visuals with some bloom.
Thank you. Also, special thanks to you for providing us with our cell shader.
Team 3, roll out.
Good morning, everyone. We are Backfire. Backfire is a game where it's a speedrunning platformer game, and you move through with your gun as well as shooting enemies with it as well, making your combat and movement one and the same. Dodge obstacles, interact with your environment, and kill all enemies in order to beat our game. Throughout our presentation, we'll show you how to blast through our digital world taking place on your computer.
I'm Chris, an artist.
I'm Ida, the producer and programmer.
I'm Mason, a programmer.
I'm Matthias, the sound designer.
I'm Oliver, a programmer.
I'm Olivia. I'm Olivia, an artist.
And here is our game.
So, the core mechanics of Backfire are a quick way to learn. You click, you shoot, you move. However, the more sophisticated elements take skill to learn. You can chain your momentum to parry, to dodge, to maneuver around the map, to create a truly smooth experience. When you are having trouble though, you can rend time to a grinding halt, allowing a brief moment of respite so you can plan the best next move. However, this takes time and you want to get through the level as quick as possible. We will now present a quick demo.
The concept of our game was created by combining two of our previous ideas, a fast-paced cooking game with simple graphics and a unique movement system, and a fast-paced action bullet hell. We took key concepts of both games in order to create Backfire as it is today.
Pre-interim presentations, we had two worlds, a vibrant cyberpunk city and a grayscale alien spaceship, both containing colorful obstacles, interactables, and enemies.
Our original game plan had you playing as a robot fighting off alien invaders in 4 different worlds. We really wanted to emphasize the difference between all our worlds and implemented obstacles and interactables special to them, such as having gravity fields and low gravity in our space world. We also really wanted to just have a lot of new things going on in each level to give the game our more replayability as well as just make it more fun for the player.
For the sound design, right away we jumped into making some music inspired by things such as Katana Zero and Neon White with the speedrunning aspect. This, unfortunately, I don't believe plays because this slideshow is not working correctly, but it's the same song you heard in the demo, so you already heard it.
However, after our interims, we received some very valuable feedback on our coherency and also the game identity of Backfire. Because of this, we decided to take a step back as a team and really sit down and discuss what our vision was for the game, which we sooner found out was pretty different amongst all of our team members. Because of this, we had many group discussions ranging from seeing each other from 9 a.m. all the way until 10 p.m. into the night, just really talking about what we wanted our game to be, discussing our color scheme for even more than an hour. And this is our great revision, and we changed a lot of our game.
After realizing the importance of alignment, me and our team has taken the whole weekend to rediscuss about the game topic. We delve deeper into the topic such as color palette, visual guidelines, and moreover, the identity. Starting from that, we came up with an identity that we are all proud of. With clarity and excitement, we press on.
After finalizing our design, we were able to start laying down the track. This included planning out all of our levels in Microsoft Paint, which you will see very soon, and making it so the environment is truly responsive and feels like a digital world.
In order to create a coherent visual guidelines, we created a concept scene and a clear color palette.
Now, as we move forward with this new art style, you can see some of our visual development here. So on the top, we have our original pre-interim, some of our assets. So you can see the player, a saw blade, and some of the ground. Now, these are all pretty detailed, but sometimes don't go together the best. Whereas you can see on the bottom, after we simplified things down and really focused on what we wanted, we were able to combine things into assets that, no matter what they were, player, obstacle, ground, go together effectively.
Now, one of the problems that we said was having a static image shoot at you was kind of boring. So we animated all of our enemies and gave them sophisticated behaviors. For example, the passive enemies will actually flee when you try and approach them. But the flying shooter enemies will dive bomb you, shoot you in 4 directions before retreating to cool down and reload. For the player movement, we decided that the player movement it felt like you were floating in an ocean. So we did some research on how guns actually worked and the physics behind recoil. We also used a Desmos math function to dynamically recalculate the zoom of the camera based on how fast you're going. Finally, or not finally, for the gameplay, we wanted to introduce the mechanics gradually. So you won't see a wind shoot and a laser in level 1. You were slowly brought these concepts on so you can learn them more proficiently.
So for our level design, we as a team decided that we really wanted to make all of this very catered for our gameplay and the player, ensuring them that they have the best experience possible. We drew out multiple sketches ahead of time, implementing all the obstacles and interactables as well as enemies we wanted to have in each level, where and when. Because of this, we were able to visualize our gameplay long before we even started actually having the levels in-game. And we also made many iterations of it while we were making it in-game as well, because we had some sizing and scaling issues, and we retiled a lot.
Throughout the levels, we set various interactables in order to make more dynamic levels. For example, we have laser gates in order to guide the player, bouncy pads in order to have wacky movement, and saws to act as obstacles. Without these, our game would be much more static and boring. Without them.
Now, take a look at Colonel, the final boss, a contaminated AI that turns into a contaminated AI that turns into a virus inside the processing matrix. So his design language in the arena is in an octagon, which gives him space to move, rotate, and apply skills such as gravity changes. So he has a full set of animation, from idle to a 360 laser spin. All the animations are designed with intentions. The fight needs to be excited, fast-paced, and at the same time learnable. With visual telegraphs and the attack pacing rhythm, he is more than just a boss, but a glitch in the system.
So the 2 abilities the player can take advantage of are the parry and the time freeze ability. Both of these slow down the game in order to give you time to think. This is good, however, the goal of the game is to beat the game in the best time, so players will eventually have to learn to go without them. Also, if they become too greedy and use these for too long, the game will backfire on you, and the player itself will be disabled for a short amount of time.
To establish visual cues, we made sure that each ability had different colors. For example, the parry has a red triangle when it fails, and yellow stars when it's successful.
The UI was created to be sleek, receptive, and responsive, and similar to our game.
The UI needs to be with clear feedback for the player, but at the same time to not be too much distracting. So they need to be designed to be crisp, synthetic, and at the same time satisfying.
Now, as we moved into the final stages of creating more of the music and sounds, we started to draw inspiration for the music from even sounds such as a death note, unexpectedly. So as you can hear here, menu theme, pretty crazy. And of course, we need some feedback for when you master a level, as you naturally will, as you're so incredibly talented. So you get a little wind jingle. And then you can see we also have some sound effects that we made. We have made a bunch of sound effects. We ended up having to redo a lot of them with the retheming after interims, but ended up making it a lot more cohesive in the sound as well, and just making everything sound a lot more complete overall. So for example, the sound of an enemy dying, which you can barely hear, the sound of running out of time on your time zone overheating, and the sound of parrying a bullet. Now, as you can see here, we went through some tough times. Things were not always good, things were not always normal, things were sometimes strange, or even bad, one might say. However, all this forged our hearts to become only stronger and greater, to surpass any challenges that we may have had to come across, which we came across a lot, and we conquered them all, definitely.
Yeah. Hoorah.
So our biggest takeaway from this game is that we really should have sat down and concretized our vision for the game sooner, as I think everyone had slightly different ideas of what we wanted the game to look like. However, we were able to fix this and edit on it because we had so many team meetings and great discussions, and everyone really participated and contributed ideas, which led us to make a game in the end that everyone's very happy with and proud of. Thank you so much for listening.
After Backfire destroyed the world, we pick up the pieces and start growing flowers. Let's welcome Blooming Wasteland.
Good morning, we're Team 4, and here's our original game, Blooming Wasteland. I'm Kaden, the producer and a programmer.
I'm Walter, a programmer.
I'm Gray, an artist.
I'm Melissa, I'm also an artist.
I'm Josh, I'm a programmer.
I'm Noah, the sound designer.
And here is our title screen music. Our game, we wanted to have an action puzzle game in 2D for PC, where you play as running a flower shop in this post-apocalyptic world. Go out and fight flower-based monsters to collect flowers and create the perfect bouquet. And here is a short demo.
Okay, so to ensure that our game was really well-rounded, we used a lot of references. One of our main references was Good Pizza, Great Pizza for its fun and interactable orders. Then we used Stardew Valley for its fun and simple combat. We also used The Binding of Isaac for its chamber-like map system. And then we also used The Cult of the Lamb for its cute and creepy, yet cute art style. And then on the right, you can also see a flower that has teeth. That was used as our main inspiration for the enemies. And above that was our main inspiration for some of the chambers.
Here are some of the concept art that we did. As you can see, a lot of the flowers are a lot more saturated compared to the darker background. You can also see a brief color scheme that we used for the shop and the background.
So originally for our shop design, we had used a lot of pastel colors to really influence that idea of purity. But we slowly realized that this was way too contrasting with the outdoor chambers. So we quickly changed that into a more saturated and darker shop. And so we also made sure that the walls were visible so that you could see the exterior, because we really wanted to add that idea of there is a barrier between this pure and safe haven of a shop and then the dangerous exterior.
We also wanted to add a short, silly story into our game. You play as Sam, who runs this flower shop, and your best friend Jessie has desperately fallen in love with this girl and needs your help to make the perfect bouquets for each occasion. And here's a rough draft of the story in its earliest stages.
This is an example of one of the letters that the player is given. This is the confession letter, and you can see that the main task sentence is bolded because people don't read. You can also see an icon of the letter in the corner, which the player can click on to access the letter anywhere throughout the game.
And once the player receives a new letter, the mailbox puts an animation and a sound effect to alert them that there's something new, if they do.
This is the journal that the player can access at any point in the game through the icon in the corner, and it provides the meaning behind all of the flowers based on the language of flowers. For example, in the case of the confession letter, the player would pick the catchfly, the tulip, and the dragon, whereas they all pertain to the theme of love.
And the music you've been hearing in the background is the music that plays while you're in the shop. I wanted to create a very peaceful vibe to kind of contribute to the safe haven feeling, so I took inspiration from these games. From Stardew Valley's Overture, I took inspiration from its simple melody and instruments. And from Undertale's Oh, One True Love, I took inspiration from its very happy and light vibe.
This is the tile map that we used. In the beginning, it was very light, but we changed it to a much darker color palette so that it would fit better with the scheme, with the aspect of post-apocalyptic.
To further emphasize this dark and desolate feeling, I composed the combat BGM, and I was inspired by these games. From Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead to Vengeance, I was inspired by its pulsing bassline. And from Cult of the Lamb's Eligos, I was inspired by this section of the choir.
So for the player, we went through 3 main designs. For its first design, in the middle, it was wearing, Sam was wearing a beekeeping suit and also overalls, but we slowly realized that that was not cohesive with the rest of our game. So we changed Sam to be wearing a hazmat suit to really sell that toxic and dystopian kind of feeling within our game.
And here are some of the player animations. So first is the walking animation. Next is the attacking animation. Next is the dash. And finally, the digging animation.
For the player movement, we can use the WASD key to land the player movement in 8 directions, but we only have got walking animations in 4 directions, so that means the animation will be chosen from the blend tree. And also, when we are walking, we can press the space bar to dash toward the mouse. Additionally, for the attackings, let's click this attack, and before the intro, we only get 4 attack animations for 4 directions. But now you can see from the blend tree, we've got totally 12 animations. That's because we find out if the player is facing one specific direction, the enemy could still be in different angles with the player. So now we've got negative, middle, and positive attacks for each of the direction. And it will be chosen from your mouse.
Here are the 8 designs for all the monsters. While they all walk and then flank themselves down when they decide to attack, they all have different attacking styles. For example, on the top you can see the Carnation, and then the Thrift, and then the Catchfly.
Some other key features of our combat is the poisoning and the healing system of the enemies. As the player wanders around the map, they can collect Weed Killer and then use this to create these poisonous clouds. When enemies walk through it, they become temporarily poisoned and will periodically take damage, as well as have this particle system and sound effect.
After being hit but not killed, the enemy will heal with the flashing of the green light and the occurring of the healing icon.
Alright, and once the enemies reach 0 health, they're put into a diggable state, as shown on the right, which makes them lose all their monstrous features, and allows the player to walk up to them, press the E key, and dig them up in order to get one of that type of flower in their inventory to be later used in submission. It also plays a short animation. Here's the inventory that can be shown at any point in the game using the tab key. It shows you a readout of all the flowers in the game, along with their names and what they look like and how many of each you have.
And here's an example of submission. After collecting all of the necessary flowers, the player returns back to the shop, clicks Make Bouquet, and is able to select up to 6 flowers to add into each bouquet. Once submitting, they're given some feedback with confetti as well as some bouquets until a new letter arrives in their mailbox. We wanted to test out our letter system beforehand to make sure that our puzzles weren't too difficult. So we had people around the ETC, both our peers and TAs, test out the system originally. We gave them drafts of each letters as well as the journal and had them vote on which flowers they believed were the most accurate in each bouquet.
These flowers were later put into a scriptable object in Unity in order to store which flowers were valid, which quest to go to if the player is successful, and which one to go to if the player is unsuccessful in order to have a cohesive progression.
And so in our game, there are 3 endings dependent on how well you submit the bouquets. There's the neutral ending, there's the worst ending, and then there's the best ending.
Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.
Next up, please stand clear of the closing doors. It's time to take a trip with the one and only Team 5.
Good morning, everybody. We're Team 5. I'm Daniel, the programmer and producer.
I'm Ezra, a programmer.
I'm Cooper, a programmer.
I'm Genevieve, the sound designer.
And Kira, one of the artists.
I'm Jay, the other artist.
This is our game, Mundane Transit Activities, and it's based off of all the chaotic activities that happen on the New York City subway. And this is our demo.
For the inspiration to the game, obviously New York City was a big inspiration. And if you've ever been on the subway, you know that a lot of times it's seen as mundane and boring. After all, it is a lot of people's daily commute. But also chaos can happen at any time. Like 2 people drawing saxophones like weapons and having a jazz duel, unprompted and unscripted. Or, from my own personal experience, seeing people in ridiculous costumes just on their way to the Smithsonian. And a lot of times, people just don't notice that these things are even happening around them. So this idea of crazy things happen all the time, you just have to look up and notice, was a big thematic inspiration for our game. And then for the gameplay, our biggest inspiration was WarioWare, the game series by Nintendo. It's about these really small micro games, like 5 seconds long, played back to back to back, with like a second in between. So the natural chaos that comes with that sort of game, and then the chaos of the subway, felt like a natural pair for our game.
Alright, art. So a lot of the initial concepting we did for this game had more to do with the characters and the, I guess, setting of it. We kind of wanted to establish the level of weirdness we would have early on. Shrek theory is real, by the way. The initial premise is that the player finds a misprinted Metro card, and that's what makes them notice all the weird things happening around them. So that is the Metro card design that we came up with. Okay, now backgrounds. The top 2 are used in the opening cutscene of the game. The second one are kind of like play baseline backgrounds that are used in most of the mini games. And more assets. These are more to do with just player interaction. We have a guitar, we have a slot machine, and also there are posters scattered throughout the subway just so that it livens up the place a little. And one thing about this game is that there is a lot of art. So what we ended up doing was we repurposed some of the original concept art and kind of just cleaned it up a little bit, and now they're interactable characters.
Here's some more like games and assets. For some of them, we started off by reusing some, but as you can see, or I guess we'll see since you'll see some of the ones that we used to use later, we made some unique designs to make it more visually clear, and we simplified some designs and added some different art styles to make it more interesting. Here are some more examples. As you can see, we added the epic sax battle and had some different like states for if you lost a note. And there's also, as you can see, a 3D model of the brain. Took a little bit too long, I'm not gonna lie. We were going to have it 3D, but decided to use a 2D renderer and artificial lighting to make it stand out with our game a bit more.
So for the gameplay flow, you start on the menu where you can choose to either the tutorial or the endless mode, and then you go to this train view, which acts as a separator between every microgame. So then you go and play a microgame, which you can win or lose. And if you lose all your lives, then you have a game over and either start over or retry the same level.
So for sound, I took inspiration from 3 main video games, which are Mindwave, Jet Set Radio, and Subway Surfers. So for Mindwave, I took a lot of inspiration from here because the gameplay is very similar to our game, which is lots of Metro games back to back to back, versus with Jet Set Radio and with Subway Surfers, both of the various soundtracks have a very sort of Metro NYC feel, and I wanted to recreate that sort of atmosphere in our tracks. And then here is the main menu music that we have. So for this, I wanted to have a more relaxing sort of feel because we've just gotten onto the subway. Nothing that crazy has really happened yet. We're just looking around. The only unusual thing is the misprinted Metro card. But then when you get to the actual level itself, now all of these crazy things are happening and you're going out and seeing and doing all of these bizarre things. So I wanted it to have more of a drive, more of an adventure sort of feel. And then as for sound effects, here are 3 sound effects that we have currently implemented in the game. Those are the train doors opening, and this is some subway ambience from the intro cutscene.
And as we developed this game, we received lots of feedback from multiple different sources on how we can improve. And first, from faculty and TAs during interims, they wanted a more cohesive nature of gameplay and wanted all the microgames to feel like at least they were on the subway. And additionally, they wanted more responses from the game to signify that you either won or lost a microgame.
However, when we gave the game to playtesters, they actually wanted it to be more chaotic, less coherent. Being on the subway was irrelevant if it made the game more unpredictable and more fun. Just seeing what could happen next was a big part of the game. Though also, did I win was also a common statement during early parts of the game. So clearing up whether or not you're doing the right thing in every microgame did take a lot of dev time, but it was worth it.
Alright, so you may have seen this for a split second earlier. This is Duel, one of our mini games, and generally the premise follows there are 2 cowboy wannabes in the subway and they're having a nerve battle, and they think they are so cool, and in the West, they are not. Originally, we had it just like this. The subway doors would open and you would just be here. There was a very large amount of disconnection. So what we did was we added this thing that fades in beforehand. This is an actual guy from New York City. He's called the Naked Cowboy, and he walks around with a very conveniently placed guitar, and he's reeling in the subway now.
This is a dog for like one of the mini games. You may have seen it in the demo. I made him with sugar, spice, and everything nice so that you 100% want to pet them, but you can't because they're such a security dog, as you can see with their vest. But lots of people do want to pet it, and so I made it even more difficult by adding a happy face for when you lose, so you're more likely to do it again.
Alright, so for our organization, after interims, we found out that we had a couple of problems, but some of the problems were a time constraint and coherence with our project. So with the time constraint, we originally planned on making 40 different record games. Yeah, but that was not going to happen. So we eventually landed on the 20 that we have in the demo around there. The way that we found out to fix this problem is that instead of using the original system that we were going to do by having record games, we put in level sets around 10 each and having them each have a theme. We decided to put them all within one big randomized level. Now, what this did is that it really helped with our coherence and our timing problem by eliminating the constraint of theme. We were originally having a hard time trying to make enough quality games for each theme in order for it to be appropriate to put a whole bunch of games into small levels. So we didn't really want to do that. We also didn't want to bloat our game with a whole bunch of bad games just to meet the level quota. So that's another reason why we scrapped that. And we believe that if we put all of them into one main randomized level, it would be easier for us to organize them to be more grounded within the subway theme rather than just be randomly teleporting into the Wild West.
And finally, we're going to showcase some minigames. So first, you saw this in the demo, but this is a vending machine. You use a finger, drag a card, and then try to buy something, and then you punch the vending machine. And here's the door stuck. The elevator's doors are stuck. You have to use both fingers to drag them apart. And finally, here you got taking a picture. So you're taking a picture of Shrek Fury. You use your phone, you tilt your phone to aim the camera and then take a picture. And then here's some final thoughts. This was our entire group's first time developing a mobile game, so we had to learn a lot of new things such as touch inputs and tilt inputs, but we adapted quickly. We also, as mentioned before, we also overscoped, but we restructured everything and managed to produce a satisfactory game in the time constraints. And finally, we also developed a great team dynamic to efficiently produce micro games in this short amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, heading on over to a farm in the grassy countryside, it's Team 6.
What do you call a cow with 2 legs? Lean beef. This is Cow Party Game. We are Team 6. This is our original game for original game round. So, meet the team.
Hi, I'm Dee. I'm an artist.
I'm Yunhu, I'm a programmer. I'm Christopher, I'm a programmer.
I'm Elaine, artist.
I'm Sherry, a partner, the producer.
And I'm Kevin, the sound guy.
So, what is Cow Party Game? This is a team-based multiplayer party game where there are 2 teams, aliens and farmers. The aliens must steal all the cows using different abilities, while the farmers must protect all the cows from being stolen by shooting the aliens. Now, cue demo. Was Cow Party Game. The basis of the pitch was that we wanted to defend our cows as a farmer or stealing from your friends as aliens. And this core of the game is also a team party game, which is something we've kept consistent through our 2 weeks of development. And you can see on the right here are some original concept art ideas that kind of have shaped and grown as we've developed our game. So, cube development week 1 after we got our pitch chosen. First, we had the abilities, which you mainly saw in the demo. You see the dash, you see jump pads, and you see shooting. These were how made the players basically interact with each other, and we got most of this done in week 1, which is something I'm really proud of.
We also implemented a system of cow abduction. An alien can walk up to a cow and hold right-click to mark it for abduction. Then an abduction UFO will come out of the mothership, traveling in a curved line and settling over the cow. It will then abduct the cow and return to the mothership. At any point, a farmer can shoot down the UFO, freeing the cow and preventing the aliens from scoring that point.
As for player movement, we decided to use the source engine movement, which allows for greater air control and mobility, such as air strafing, and that adds a lot of depth to our movement system.
On the art side, we built further on the character designs of the aliens from the pitches, and I started working on 3D models for 2 of the aliens that we were planning on doing. Additionally, I started on doing animation, basic walk cycles, and idols for the aliens as well as other characters needed in the game.
Oh yeah, this is just some concept art that we took references from, and we really like the mountains in the first one and the skeletons in the one below, and we just wanted to like scatter that across the map. And for when I was arranging the environment, I was really inspired by Zelda made by Nintendo, and I just wanted to like recreate that sense of like seamlessness between like foliage and mountains.
And for our map layout, I took a lot of inspiration from a first-person shooter, team-based shooter called Team Fortress 2, and we used different layouts to cater different interactions between players. And for example, when you first start out as a farmer, you can either go to a shorter but more blinding path, or a longer but more open path, which adds more depth to the interactions between players.
Yeah, this is the map before interns, and I completely scrapped this after feedback.
So, now Q interms. During interms, we got a lot of feedback about making our game more fun, as well as reducing our scope. With this in mind, we started development for week 2.
So for week 2, we got feedback that we're overscoped, and so we cut down from the 5 original aliens planned to only 3 of them. And additionally, I started working on props for the maps.
Yeah, this is the foliage I created, and also rocks. I also made a triplanar shader that would like change the material based on the orientation of the rock. And I like completely redid all of my assets for the environment because it was too desaturated and too dark. So I tried to make it look more cartoony to fit our game better, and I made like the tree bush. Yeah, I'm so excited. If you've like seen me or talked to me in like the past 4 weeks, you've like heard the word grass come out of my mouth. I spent like 3 days on this grass, and I love my grass so much. Sorry. Yeah, basically I made it so like the color of the grass would blend with the terrain using a shader graph, and that would like make it look really seamless and look like the grass was like coming out of the ground itself and like just like the same object. And I also made it so like it would wave in the wind, as you can see here, and like shadows would like be able to cast on the grass, and also like there would be light on the grass and like dapple kind of. Sorry. Oh yeah, and this is like some close-ups of the map I created, and yeah, I just like really sorry. Yeah, I think it's really beautiful because like you can see the way the sun is like dappling on the ground, and also like the grass. Yeah, thanks. Okay, yeah, this is the post-processing I applied, so this is the before, and this is the after. So basically I added like an orange bloom to make it look more summery, and yeah, I think it looks really good. And this is the final game map without post-processing, but as you can see, like I really changed the color scheme and like the general feel. I like I wanted to go for like a lighter green color and like with yellow undertones. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is the final game menu that I rearranged, and also I used Viewlink's assets, and I also applied post-processing so it looked like it would be like a sunset, and yeah.
So, since we got a lot of feedback about making our game more fun, a way we decided to build on this feedback was we wanted to make the game a lot more responsive by incorporating visual effects. So what you see here is basically an on-hit effect, a cow being abducted, a hit effect when you explode the UFO, and there's also a bunch more effects such as stunning, which you have seen in a demo, and etc. This gives the game a lot more responsiveness and kind of makes the game a lot more fun, as some of the feedback we got in the demo was that it adapted to the best ability that they had seen.
We also implemented a system of player respawning. When a player loses all their health, their camera switches to a kill cam, where for a short time they watch the player that killed them. After that time, they will respawn at the spawn point that is closest to the average position of all the cows. The wait time ensures that players are not incentivized to die, but they're also not out of the fight because they will respawn.
As of the menu, we decided on a 3D menu once again, and we used animations and a mix between shaders and animations to create a more poppy sort of effects on the menu.
Yeah, for the title screen, I try to make like a 2000s malware, like very poppy, very saturated colors, as well as like very bold text to emphasize, direct the player's eyes to where to look.
Now, on the composition side, there is separate tracks for start and lobby, and both of them are jazz, though the start track has a slightly less rhythmic bass, while the actual lobby has a more rhythmic bass to build more tension. Elaborating on that, there is also a game track, and that is a completely different vibe. It is a dance pop game track, and it uses drums instead of bass to give a sense of rhythm and also introduce the player to the tension of the game. Next, we also have the win and lose tracks, which do not actually, it just provide encouragement to the player, like, you lost, you can try again. It's a party game, it's not like a ranked leaderboard game. And next, we also have sound effects. They're either exaggerated or very subtle. For example, there is the jazz sound effect you just heard, and at the end, there is a fireball sound. And for the UFO abduction, there is also a very high peak at the start, and this is in order to indicate that if ability has started or ability has ended, and also to provide satisfaction to the player. And there is also some subtle ambience. For example, there's the hay bale, UI clicks, and also cow mooing, which all provide some feedback to the player that they are doing something. And next, we also have some voice lines, to be exact 5, and they have 46 variations, and they play when the player gets killed or kills somebody, but only occasionally, because we don't want to spam the player with too much information. And there's also some hurt effects when the player gets shot, but not too many, because you get shot quite a bit in this game, as with Team Fortress 2. And so we don't want to spam the player with too much information. That's the spell.
Thank you. What do you call a cow with 4 legs? A cow!
Monsters don't wait. So gear up and let's welcome Team 7.
Hello.
we're Team 7, and this is our original game from the depths. My name is Sophia, I was the producer on this team, and I'm also a programmer.
I'm Krita, I'm a programmer.
I'm Austin, and I'm the other programmer.
I'm Rachel, an artist.
And I'm Michelle, the sound designer.
So here's a demo of our game. So who here likes Greek mythology? Raise your hand. A lot of you, awesome. Our game was based on class discussions about Greek mythology, and so basically you are a demigod who was unjustly cast into Tartarus, and you have to try and fight classic Greek monsters to survive.
So here are some of the concept art that we had going into pitch presentations. Our game was originally designed for the Cavern, which is a CMU projection system that has a 270-degree view around the player. So on the bottom, you can see one of our cave designs. We would have a layered cave system that would depend on the height of the enemy you were fighting, whether that was the regular enemies or the boss enemies. But after we transitioned into VR, the height was no longer an issue, so we just had all the enemies on the ground level. And then on the top, you can see some of our designs that we would have for our enemy characters.
So initially we were designing for the cavern, so we had these things called vibe trackers to constantly track where your player is and where they had their sword pointing towards. So we designed it technically to be a two-player game and for this to be a collaborative hack and slash, but this changed a lot.
So as it was mentioned, we were developing for the Cavern, that was our original pitch, and we spent 4 out of our 5 days before interim presentations working in the Cavern. And then it broke. The PC sounded like, as I like to describe, a dying car from the 60s. So we had to transition to VR the day before our interim presentations, and because of this, we had to cut a lot from our game. One of which was multiplayer, and then we also had to cut down on art, and we had to cut down on some sound and programming. And because of this, we had to extremely narrow our scope. So after we transitioned to VR though, honestly, it was a lot easier in terms of managing it. The Cavern had a huge learning curve, and we were able to come up with a finished game that I think we're all proud of.
And here are some of the enemy designs that we created and modeled. We went for a low poly and just like simple textures to help not only with scope and time, but also to keep a cohesive style throughout the game. So here are some of the characters. We have a hellhound, we have a lost soul, and then a bat and a snake. And then next, we have some rocks for the environment, as well as the boss enemies, which are the orc and the cyclops. We had originally wanted to go for a lot more humanoid characters, because those are some traditionally like Greek mythology characters in the underworld. However, after we got some feedback during interim presentations, we had to cut down on a lot of that and adjust our characters to become creatures that would take a lot less time to rig and animate.
So after we switched to VR from the Cavern, instead of using our Vive controllers to track where the player is, we were able to use the controllers on our headsets. It was much easier to use, and now our swords were much more accurate, and you could feel the feedback. And we also had to narrow it down to a single-player game, which is kind of sad, but it's still pretty fun. So our game runs on an infinite wave system. Each wave has a random number of enemies that you will spawn for you to fight. And every 5 of these normal waves, you'll switch to a boss scene where you can fight a boss until either the boss dies or you die. If you defeat the boss, you go back to the normal waves. This is a cycle of 5 normal waves and a boss scene again and again until you die and lose. And so your enemies are going to be spawning from all 360 degrees around you, so you have to constantly be aware of your surroundings. And since this is pretty hard for your player to actually play the game, we added both long and short range attacks, which we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, so as Pritha mentioned, we have implemented both melee attacks as well as ranged attacks in order to help scale the difficulty of this game since enemies spawn all around you. So as the player, your main weapon is a combination between a magic staff as well as a spear, and this allows you to shoot out a magic particle from the tip of your spearhead whenever you press the trigger on your controller, and in this way you can aim at your enemies and hopefully kill some of them before they actually get to you. Now, as for the melee aspect, your spear has a little pommel at the bottom which you can use to stab downwards, as well as a spear tip at the top which you can use to hack and slash at your enemies when they get too close to you. And our UI system is also implemented on the left hand, and it displays vital stats such as your health, your wave, as well as your score. And we also have full screen fade effects like blood splatters, as well as fade in, fade out panels in order to increase immersion. And this was probably one of the biggest challenges we had while developing this game, because the Cavern's UI system functioned really much like your normal UI system, and it was really easy to implement. But VR was much more touchy, and it didn't support a lot of the features we used before, so we had to split down our system in order to make it compatible with VR.
So for our enemies, the bigger they are, the more difficult they are to kill, and the more damage they do. This was done so that not every enemy would just be a retexturing of each other. Our boss, however, works a little bit differently. The movement is more sporadic and random, and this was done to disorient the player and make it a tougher battle because it is a boss enemy. It also for our enemies, when they attack you, they hit you and then they run away. And you can still try and kill them to get points, but they will not come back and attack you. However, the boss enemy will attack you, run away, and then come back to attack you again. And this was done so that the boss battle just continues onwards until you're able to kill it.
And for the sound effects, we use,
and as I mentioned, when the enemies hit you, they run away. And this was done in order to prevent the swarming, because if there were 15 enemies attacking the player all at once, they would get super overwhelmed and they would die super easily. And this was done to balance the game more.
and so for the sound effects, we use Audacity to edit the audio, making it sound like you're more inside the cave in this echoey environment. So every time you transition into a new scene, you would hear this very haunting sound like you heard in the demo. So when you start the game, this sound will play. And every time a new wave of enemies approach you, you will hear this sound. And every time you lose, you'll hear this sound. We also implemented sound effects for all the enemies. Here are just a few of them. This is the back chirp. And this is the orc. And this is the lost soul, which is kind of like a ghost scream. And we also implemented other sound effects like the enemy footstep, the collision with the enemies when you hit them, and that pew pew sound from the demo. And so for the intro theme, we were thinking about something very haunted, very slow. So we first used MuseScore to compose some chord progressions, and then add melodies to the choir, violins, bass synth, and drums. And we also used waveform to add realistic instruments and make it sound like you're more inside of a cave. So for the background music you may have heard from the demo, it sounds really similar to the intro theme. This was because we used similar keys and chords, but we added more emphasis on the choir and violin to bring out the tension and bring that kind of feeling into the game when you're fighting these enemies.
Thank you.
I hope you're ready to lose your minds. It's my honor to introduce Team 8, Team Shizzo.
Hello everyone, we are Team Shizzo, and this is our VR puzzle horror game of Oblivicy. I'm Jackson Weiser, the producer and a programmer.
I'm Zeb Smith, another programmer.
My name is Q McLean, another programmer.
I'm Marsha, I'm the artist. I'm Tanya, the other artist.
I'm Dylan, I did sounds and music.
So I have a question for all of you. What scares you the most? Because for me as a child, it was the dark, and stuff changing rapidly around me. I don't know, that's pretty common human what I hear. And that is exactly what our puzzle game aims to replicate. So taking place in a house and its basement, it deals with non-Euclidean spaces, meaning that wherever you enter, wherever you look, when you turn back and look at it again, it might be different. Here is a demo to demonstrate what we are talking about. So, as you may have seen from that demo, our game is rather confusing, and it also has a lot of things that make it unique to VR. So, some of the core things about our game. So, starting with VR development specifically, there was some unique challenges with making the player experience work with that. So first, our doors. They are what connects every room. Here's a couple comparisons from the start of our development to what it looked like in the trailer. This helps us transition between different puzzles as well as mask our illusions. So they were important to get working pretty early on. Yeah, it works perfectly there.
And then the next thing that we have is an inventory system like you saw in the demo. And what's interesting about our inventory system is that it's in 3D space. So the player has to physically reach in and grab the items that they want from the inventory, just to kind of bring like immersion and like kind of strategic values to our game. And you can like transport like many different items to really just like branch out what kind of puzzles that we can create.
And then finally, to increase immersion, we used hand models, which were animated and by us, but we used the models from the default Oculus website, and increase immersion and like feeling like you were there.
Oblivicy being a VR game gives a player a much more immersive relationship with the camera. And because of that, we took advantage of that to create puzzles that tricked the player's line of sight. And by layering these puzzles that were initially confusing and have reality warping, with little rules and patterns that they could notice, we could allow them to teach themselves how to solve each puzzle and escape, with these mechanics building on each other.
And as you can see, there are some of our initial designs and how they turned out in the final build.
going to walk you through the art direction, design process behind Oblivion. We chose a realistic style with a strong emphasis on traces of human absence. During the modeling phase, we paid a close attention to the layout and personality of each spaces. We asked ourselves what kind of person must live here, what kind of living habit they might have had. This helped us adding up privacy and the kind of authenticity to the room we designed.
And when it comes to texturing, we move into Substance Painter and continue the theme of intimacy and wear. Our goal wasn't to make the scene look instantly scary, but rather like capture one's love space. So we lean towards warmer color tones using colors such as beige, cream white, and soft colors. But for larger structural elements such as the wall, we use cooler tone tones to create spatial pressure and ease. But we also face many technical challenges. Some of our UV maps are incorrectly unwrapped, and we have issues with texture map compatibility between Unity and Substance Painter. But with the help of our TAs and many YouTube tutorials, we overcame the struggles.
Thinking the most challenging part, lighting. We both have limited experience in this area, so it was a huge learning curve. We had so many questions, including how can we preserve objects' detail while still creating a sense of darkness and tension, since we are building a horror game. So we started by using a mix of spotlight, point light, and directional light, and using 3-point lighting rules as our baseline. And then the greenish yellow color scheme became our recurring theme because it helps adding a scary atmosphere, but also lighting up the object's detail without overwhelming the environment.
And in order to enhance this effects, we also use post-processing, like subtle emission to help objects glow slightly. And because this is a VR game, it's really important for us to balance between backlighting and real-time lighting. Because too much real-time lighting will kill the performance, but too much backlighting will make the environment look stiff and lifeless. So we spend a lot of time fine-tuning this balance. So basically, these are all the art assets, and they can be reused in the later gameplay section.
And because sometimes navigating 3D space in VR can be nauseating, we made an options menu where you can toggle a vignette just to help with that. In addition to a couple of sliders to change the music audio level and the sound effects audio level.
So for the music of this game, I tried to make it as eerie as I could. So using instruments like pianos with lots of reverb and echoes on them. And at the same time, I tried to capture sort of like a homely melody, sort of warm. So the melody, it feels natural when you play it by itself, but I added pitch shifting to make it feel more distorted. And something I'm really proud of is the way we implemented random noises. So there's a list of random noises that could play throughout the game, throughout specific points in time, and it'll cycle through one of them and play just to heighten the immersion. So here's a few of them.
So one of the main things that we got feedback for during interims was to focus more on kind of an overarching story. We pitched it originally as a person coming back from their day at work into their house, so we really focused on that. So we started the game inside the house, the full house model itself, and with the tutorial.
At the start of the game, the player comes home after a long day of work. They go and prepare food, but after checking off the task list and returning back to eat dinner, they find that the food is somehow already rotted. So they have to throw it away and just go on with their day. But in this tutorial, the player is introduced to 3 main mechanics they'll use throughout the game. They're introduced to grabbing items, using the inventory, and opening doors, and most importantly, the secret one, the idea that nothing in this world is consistent.
The bulk of our game takes place in the basement, which is where all the puzzles are. In this section, we really wanted to focus on how the mechanic would evolve between puzzles. So we first started by laying them all out with our original ideas. And we needed to focus on how the player would learn about how a mechanic would work and what the limits of it were.
So this is our illusion system. We like to call it warping. And what this system does is it checks to see if the player's in a specific area and if they're not looking at a point or a group of points. And if they're not looking at those points, it'll do the action that you've told it to. And we've made the system very dynamic.
So we can just drag and drop it in from Unity, and it'll kind of like do that action already. And we made it so dynamic, so it's so super easy to create different puzzles, modify puzzles, and change things around after the interim presentation.
And as you saw at the end of our trailer, the last section is the chase sequence. Once again, this is technically labeled as a horror game, so we really wanted to put a horror sort of sequence into it.
This is the monster sound. So I tried to make it something the players don't want to be around, just to heighten that sense of chase. So I made it intentionally like distorted, weird, like garbled noise.
So how did this entire project go for us? First of all, things went well. We communicated very well as a team. We all share very similar senses of humor because we found a lot of stuff we did in this funny somehow. We also were all very dedicated to this idea. We all really loved it when we originally pitched it. So we all brought our own ideas into it and really made like a one big collaborative project, which I think we're all really happy with. What could have gone better? Over-scoping, I think, was probably one of our bigger problems, or scope creep. We kind of were in the perspective of we can always add more, and people in our group and outside of our group kept suggesting puzzles that we could add. So it was kind of difficult to manage that. And then on top of that, of course, learning VR into like this kind of style of game was a challenge for all of us. But thank you so much for watching.
I hope everyone's ready to have a magical time racing to the top in Team 11's network multiplayer game. Team 9.
Hello, everyone. Yes. Okay. We're the Wacky Wizards, and this is going to be our game, Wizard Rush. I'm Jamie. I'm the producer and a programmer.
I'm Ludwig, the programmer.
I'm Desmond. I'm a programmer.
I'm Emily, an artist.
I'm Laura, I'm also an artist.
I'm Frederick, the sound designer.
And this is going to be straight into our gameplay demo. I hope you enjoy.
2, 1.
Brainstorming. We really wanted to start off with a one-on-one game in which you battled your friends, and we wanted to incorporate offense and defense. We really wanted to have that two-sided factor, so it was not just straight offense or straight defense. That eventually evolved into our initial pitch, which was a multiplayer PC game in which you and your friends battle, and you wanted to climb, avoid obstacles, and fight your friends using spells and different orientations, which eventually evolved into our gameplay loop.
And our gameplay loop was very simple at the start. We wanted players to climb the tower, and along the way there would be obstacles in their way. So there would be environmental hazards in the level, and on top of that, of course, as a multiplayer game, other players are trying to impede you from climbing the tower. When you're climbing the tower, the whole goal is to get to the scroll. And once you get the scroll and bring it back, you can deposit it in the library at the bottom of the tower, at which point you'll win the round. This whole loop will repeat until players have won enough rounds, and they'll eventually win the game. And with that gameplay loop and initial pitch, the whole skeleton established, we began our development stage, and we started with the art.
So first we started to design the wizard's right. We thought it looked a little too young at first, so we decreased the head to body ratio. And we also made the robe a little more realistic. And here's some of our color variations for our wizards. Next, for the animations, here are some of our initial animations and also the evolution of our running animation. One main challenge we faced here was finding references for the fabric movement. And to address this, we had to pull many references together, such as wizard movies, and also making our own references. Here are some of our initial tile map and icons. Unfortunately, most of these were scrapped due to changes in color palette and also time constraints.
Level design was one of the first steps we took in the art development process. As you can see in the black and white drawing, we first developed the overall layout of the level, as well as all the obstacles and the player movement. Then we implemented this into Unity using tile maps. And for the background, one of the main challenges we faced was the color palette. As you can see, we initially started with more of a blue-gray monotone color palette. However, we eventually decided to shift it to more of a brown color palette, but it got too murky, so we scrapped it and ended up with a color palette that had more purple and yellow tones.
As a multiplayer game, the players need to be able to interact with each other, and the main way they do that is through spells. We have a completely customizable loadout, so there's a list of 6 spells that you can choose from at the start of the game, and you can pick 3 of them in order to use in the game. These spells are split into 2 main categories. There's offensive spells, which are used to harass other players, basically, and there's movement spells, which are used to help you get up the tower. These spells are going to be shown right here. So we have Fireball. You can throw a fireball, which will knock other players back. There's Lightning, which stuns players for a short time. There's Wind, which again knocks players back in a radius around you. Geyser, which launches you upwards and helps you climb the tower. Vines, which you can climb and also block projectiles. And then Gravity, which is hell. It reverses gravity around you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about something about sound design. So at the beginning, we first created the sound for the spells. For example, the fireball. Oh, this is lightning. And the gravity reverse. And the fireball. Okay, and we also have some voice lines for these different spells. Wizard will test the name of these spells when they use these spells. Fireball. Geyser, gravity reverse. All right, this is how we record it. Okay, and we also have some SFX that can only heard by the player itself. For example, we have the sound for button clicking and also the sound for switching between the different spells. And we also created the music for the interesting and the gameplay music. And because our game is a party happy game, so the theme of this game should be happy and easy. So we have the jazzy and electronic music style. But because it is too long, so I'm not going to play it now.
At this point, we got a lot of feedback after the interim presentations and also from a lot of play testing. We really wanted to improve our level design, make our art a bit more coherent, and make the whole game feel a bit more intuitive. So this is what we did with that feedback.
So first, for the art part, we finished all our animations, and since we made some changes to level design, we also made animations for our new obstacles.
And then for the background, we made new assets such as the window and the column, and then we also applied that to the background inside the game. And we also created 2 new tile maps, such as the gradient tile map and the normal brick tile map.
We also finished our UI screens. Here's our title screen and win screen, and also our tutorial screens. We also made a spell rotator, a height tracker, spell selection buttons, and a library.
Okay, so getting into level design, as Jimmy mentioned earlier, we got a lot of feedback. We initially had all these different types of levels, and we wanted to incorporate a programming system that allowed for us to switch levels. That was over scope, and we had to scrap it all. So as you see on the right here, or it would be your left. So on the left here, you can see your concept art, and that's where we kind of started. And then we had this whole level planned out with a bunch of diversity, but then we realized that the players, it didn't engage combat enough. They could just simply climb to the top, and then all of a sudden, someone grabs the scroll and the game's over like that. So we really need to incorporate some, and that's where obstacles came in. We have the mushroom, the cauldron, spikes, ladders, and other obstacles within the game that allow the players to really engage in combat and get stuck in different areas, incorporating that combat aspect. That later evolved into what we incorporated as player depth. So when we got into player depth, we initially started with checkpoints, so that players could die to something like a cauldron or spikes, and they could respawn and still be in the game. And then we came up with a problem. There was a player function which players could just simply camp at the bottom, wait for someone to grab the scroll, and sit there. So we need to fix that. So a simple way of fixing that is that the player at the bottom dies when the player at the top touches the scroll. This forces the players at the very bottom to then climb their way to the top, forcing combat and forcing them to really drive their way to the top Upon dying, the player will be translated to a spectating screen, and they'll be able to switch between players, and they will be out for the whole round.
In order to improve some of the intuitiveness of the game, one of the complaints from playtesting was that the camera was really too small and you couldn't see what was going on in the rest of the level. And so we had this height tracking UI implemented. So now you can see where all the players are on the tower, as well as where the scroll is on the tower, so you know where your goal is and what you're trying to get to. On top of that, as Desmond mentioned before, we kill the lowest player if the scroll is collected, and so you've got an exclamation mark next to your icon if you're in danger of dying.
So after that, we have added some sound for these different game objects, like the cauldron and the broom. And when the player gets closer to these obstacles in the scene, they can hear the sound. Okay, and we also have some sound for the players themselves. For example, when the player jumps, there will be a specific sound. And also when the player is hit by a fireball or a lightning, they will make like an ouch sound. Okay, and we also have added the wind music, which is a music you hear back in the demo video. And the wind music have two different parts, and when the player grabs the scroll and gets it closer to the library door, the wind music will play its first part, and the volume will increase as the scroll gets closer to the library door. And when the closer touches the library door, the wind music will play its second part with the drum beats and also some synthesizer sound.
So, lastly, every player wanted to be able to differentiate themselves, so we added in robe colors, and this is how the system worked. So firstly, we start off with two base sprites, one which is just like the wizard doing his thing, and another which is like the face and the legs. Next, we tint one of the sprites to whichever color we wanted using code, and now when we put the two of them together, we get a completely unique wizard robe color using just two sprites, which we could use throughout the game whenever we wanted to make any color we wanted. So, yeah.
And with these new wizard colors, we had 6 unique wizards, and we decided the best part of this, we're going to name our wizards. We each got our own wizard. And so here, the introduction to our wizards.
So I'm Desmond, I'm Silly the Willy.
I'm Ludwig, my wizard's name is Greg.
I'm Jamie, I got Bartholomew.
I'm Laura, I'm Vincent.
Oh, I'm Emily, I'm Pretty Dragon.
Frederick called it, I control the rules of nature.
Thank you so much for listening to the presentation.
Somebody order delivery? Up next is Team 10 with the rhythm game Route 88.
Hello, we are Team 10. This is our game, Route 88. It's a rhythm parkour game. I'm Sophia, the producer/artist.
I'm Orion, a programmer.
I'm Kate, artist and programmer.
I'm Kathy, the artist and programmer.
I'm Kai, an artist.
And I'm Derek, the sound designer.
Yeah, so to go into the story of our game, you are a delivery person in China and you have to jump across buildings and do parkour in order to get your food delivered on time. And you have to do all of this while staying on beat to the music.
We were inspired by densely populated cities, specifically in China, like Kowloon Walled City and Hong Kong. We took inspiration from other 2.5D games, which is just 2D assets in a 3D environment, and we wanted a more vibrant, fun colors, like in Sayonara Wild Hearts, which is the pink one.
And here's our video.
So moving on to programming for this game, we had the unique issue where normal rhythm games, you have to sync, of course, the song, the beats, and the notes. Ours, you also had to sync a position in the world and moving through that. So for this, we created a custom tool in the editor, called it the Spline Manager. You can see it here. It basically allowed you to visualize the beats in a song and basically plot them in the world. Here you can kind of see how we sync that up with the song. We have markers that basically indicate what beat is at what point in the song and what type of beat that is, whether a tap, a slider, that type of thing. Here you can see it in the actual scene. The green and blue nodes are notes that the player will press, and here you can see it in a fully, in our first level. You can see the notes line up with moves the player does, whether it's jumping, sliding under stuff, and jumping across walls. And then here is the in-game version, you'll see. And you'll see the notes would sync up with the beat, and you'll press it when you approach them.
And what is a rhythm game without timing? Due to this, we thought it was crucial for the player to be able to adjust their music in response to their own gameplay lag. So this simple calibrator does just that. The player hits the beat 8 times with the guidance of a metronome, and we simply calculate the average offset, save it to the game, making it much more accurate for those competitive users. Furthermore, we also have a unique level select system where you rotate the entire world and you're able to see what specific levels await you, from colossal cities to exciting festivals. And it gets boring after looking at the back of the player after a while. So we added a camera switch to spice things up, fully utilizing the 2.5D aspect of our game. And for the UI, which stands for user interface, or anything the player interacts with in the game, we added a lot of quality of life aspects, such as a pause screen for those who rage quit from how hard a game is, or an online source with additional UI elements that enable the player to play with friends and family.
Okay, as for the sound, because we have a rhythm game, we knew that we had to decide the direction of the music quite early on, because we would need enough time to make the music. And so, for inspiration, we decided, because our game is situated in China, we took a lot of inspiration from various modern-day Asian music, as well as more traditional sounds, such as the guzheng, which is used in a lot of the songs that I made for this for this game. Additionally, we looked at a lot of different rhythm games, such as Unbeatable, and then also more classical ones, which is to discover what is needed to make the player feel satisfied with the game. And finally, this is just the interface I use to create sounds and synthesizer sounds. It's called Serum, and it's my baby. I love it. Next, you already heard the 2 songs that we made for our first 2 levels. But here is just a demo of the tutorial stage that plays right before the beat drop.
is a more traditional sound. Next, for our sound effects, it was actually really tricky to make sound effects for this game because although I just dragged a simple crash for the hit sound, at first it was really distracting to the player, and so it was very hard to balance a sound effect that would feel good for player feedback, but also not distract the player too much. And this also brought up an issue with mixing the songs because adding a separate drum would throw the whole entire song off balance, and so I had to remix the song after importing the sound effects. This is just another demo of the sound effects. Finally, for Fmod, which Orion already briefly touched upon, we also use Fmod to create more player feedback. So this one is a mistake that we programmed in Fmod, which would temporarily cut down on the melody playing for a brief second if you made a mistake. And then the other one is a combo system. So I created a counter melody in which would only play if you had like a good combo and it was hitting perfects. And the music would also sound fine without it. So it's very interesting to create a counter melody.
Yeah, so now for the art. As we said before, we are using 2.5D, which means the whole environment is 3D. We wanted to go for this super colorful, neon highlighted look for our first level, which is set during the day. You can see a couple of pictures here. There is also a side view of the environment as well. Yeah, and here you can also see 3 examples of the buildings that we used. Yes, but for the second level, we decided to switch things up a bit. It is set during a night market, and this one has more of a story to it. First off, you start in a traffic jam, which makes sense because that would explain why you need to deliver this food so quickly. And after that, the player goes into the night market. And you can see some examples of the different food stalls that are there. And next, here are some different angles of this night environment. And we used Maya to make all these different buildings. We would originally use simpler buildings and then attach smaller assets onto them so that we could create lots of different varieties of these buildings for our very large environment.
Furthermore, both me and Kate had experience in 3D and 2D art beforehand, so we decided to help out despite being programmers because art was the hardest aspect in the development process. So here are just some further assets that we made. You can see this car scattered around across the levels, some further buildings and environmental assets. These buildings in particular are inspired by Chinese culture as this is inspired and takes place in China. Some further night stalls, and some just more assets for future levels that we hope to implement.
For the main character design, we originally started off with a lot of detail and a lot of different iterations. However, for the sake of animation, we simplified the design on your right.
And using the simplified character design, we made a plethora of different animations, such as the run, the side run, the side slide, the jump, the hits, the slam, all those things.
And here are some UI elements for the game. And we have 3 different types of notes for this game. Pink is normal, blue is a slider, which you hold onto, and then yellow is special. After interims, we got some feedback. There wasn't enough risk in the game, so the special note basically is a critical jump in which if you hit it normally and correctly, then you get extra points. But if you hit it incorrectly, then you lose.
Yeah, and just some more about the process that we went through while creating this game. Our scope creep was definitely a problem. Rather than the sound or the programming, which was a surprise, we just had so many assets that we wanted to make, and because we weren't able to finish them, that prevented us from making as many levels as we wanted to.
Another big problem that we faced when creating this game was the level design, because we actually started building the levels while Orion was working on the spline editor tool. So as the level designers encountered more problems when designing these levels, we figured out more bugs within that spline editor tool, and then Orion went back and fixed that, causing us to have to go back and fix also the problems within the current current spline. And we repeated that a couple of times, having to scrap a bunch of our work over and over for the levels to get those levels out.
Yeah, despite these problems, we still ended up with a product that we're really proud of, and we all had really good communication throughout the process, which made the whole project really much easier. And this is a sneak peek for the level, the music for level 3. Thank you.
Now it's time to fight. Welcome our Team 11.
Okay, hey everyone, we're Team 11. This is our presentation for our game, Scrap. My name's Hannah, I'm the producer and an artist.
My name's Justin, I'm on sound and art.
My name's Melody, I'm the artist.
My name's Eli, I'm a programmer.
My name's Isabella, I'm also a programmer.
I'm Carl, and also a programmer.
So Scrap is a chaotic party game where players control steampunk-themed mechs in a team of two and fight the other team.
Our platform of choice for this game was the Jam and Drum, which you'll learn more about in a minute, but basically it means that teamwork and coordination between teammates are required in this game.
For our team, there will be one player that's controlling the movements, where another player will controlling the attack.
Here's a demo of our game.
Sorry, that's the old version of our presentation.
Oh, so for jump drum, a jump drum can display 4 separate views for the players, and it's done through the player wearing glasses that can show them a certain frame shots from the projector.
We took advantage of this so each player gets to see the game scene from their angle, and we combined this with the close proximity of the jungle drum to really emphasize this party game aspect.
Every player will receive a spinning and a drum to hit.
And here's our real demo of our game.
You can do that. Yes, sir.
So during brainstorming, we decided that we wanted Scrap to be a chaotic party game where players could add into fun little arguments with their friends. Thus, we went heavy on the teamwork aspect for our game. And all the moves for our game will require coordination between the player controlling the attack and the player controlling the movement.
Scrap was also heavily inspired by Street Fighter up there, and since the Jam Drum has these weird janky controls, we kind of made big steampunk robots to fit that theme.
Started with our coding, we have been chosen to implement and started with our core character, which is the machine.
The movement player can perform certain actions. When they turn their wheel, they will move their ball forward and backwards. When they're standing still and they hit the drum, they'll jump. When they hit the wheel while they're moving, they'll perform a dash that makes them briefly invulnerable. And finally, the players will always be facing one another.
In the battle scene, the camera is always positioned at the center point between the two players. In addition, there's boundary walls on the sides of each camera, which ensure neither player can go off screen. For attacks in our game, to encourage coordination, the attack that the attacking player performs when they press the button depends on the direction that the moving player is moving in.
So we have 5 attacks in total. So if player moving towards your opponents and hit attack, it will be a jab attack. And if player move away from the opponents and hit attack, it will be a kick attack. And also we have charge attack. The attacker needs to spin the wheel to charge and then hit the attack to release the attack. And also we have a rocky punch. It's a range attack, and we also have a ground pound. You need to jump into the mid-air and hit attack to do this. And each different attack have a different damage or speed, so the player needs to strategize which one they need to use.
When the TAs tested our game, a lot of the feedback we got was about how the game's fast pace kind of made any coordination impossible. Just because of the inherent delay of communicating between two people, any sort of knee-jerk reaction that had to be made was basically impossible. So to fix this, we wanted to slow down the pace of our game. One way we did this was making our attacks a lot slower. So as you can see, our new attacks are almost twice as slow as the old versions. We also added hit stun and knockback, so the player couldn't just immediately attack after being attacked. And we improved the dash and the jump by adding invincibility to the start of the dash and increasing air time on the jump to make movement feel more important.
And also make the time for charging longer, and also balance the attack and change the timing of the startup, active, and recovery frames to control when the robot can start moving again after each attack.
And this is our animator tree for our player, the Bush of Doom. Since our game is a fighting game, we really wanted to make sure that all the animations flowed smoothly between every state that the player could do. This would help the players understand movement and timing better, which would help make the combat more intuitive.
What is coming up will be our art and sound.
So first, what we did, our feedback from interims, a lot of it was that our game didn't feel heavy or real enough. Like the punches felt too light, the robots felt floaty, because they looked really big, but they kind of seemed light. So we fixed that by adding particles and heavier, crunchier sound effects. Okay, and screen shake.
In order to make sure that our screen fits with the drum's round shape, we have added much more decoration on the top and bottom parts about our game. For the element choices, we are using wings, glares, and clocks to highlight our steampunk scene.
There are 3 round indicators at the top of the screen, one for each round. After a round ends, the corresponding light will light up with the winning team's color so that players can always keep track of the current score at all times. Furthermore, each bot's health bar is displayed at the bottom of the screen with their team colors as well.
We also have a charge bar below the health bar, and we have 3 levels charging in total, and once you step into the higher level, you can cause higher damage.
We also implemented a start seat. In this scene, players can hit their drums to ready or unready up, and when all 4 players are fully ready, the game begins. We also wanted to show players all the possible actions they could perform, so each player can use their scroll wheel to access their own set of guide pages, which include a brief overview for casual players and also an advanced guide including all actions that we have in the game.
To your left, you can see that we went through many iterations for our guide pages, and we settled on this final version to give players the best readability and understanding of our game. And there's also an image of our title scene art. Also, for round transitions, as previously mentioned, we have the indicators for which team won the game, as well as the winning bot will do a dance animation, and the losing bot has a fixing animation where little mechanic people run onto the screen. And also during those animations, the background transition, since we have 3 different time settings for our game.
We then added an end scene, so after 3 rounds are played, the players are taken to an end scene where the winning team is displayed. Players are then given an option to ready up again to play another match, or if they don't ready up after a set amount of time, the game will close.
In order to make sure that our character and world stand out, we have been choosing a dark color as the main color of our background. Also, in order to make sure that this fits our world building, we are using glares as the main elements and icons for our background choices to the end scene.
So these are the animations for my robot. After interims, I added a lot of interactions with the environment. So you can see it has like dust coming out of its feet when it slides. It has like smoke coming out of its head, stuff like that.
Here are the animations for the other character. We also went through many iterations after getting more feedback, and these are just some of the examples of animations we have.
So this is our old background from interims. The main problem with this was scale. So if you look at that robot, it kind of looks human-sized, but if you look at the robot itself, it feels big. So we wanted to change it so that it wasn't like human-sized. So we did that with this new background that I made yesterday. You can see it has actual people in the background from this program. So then that's like a scale reference, so you can tell the robot's actually like many times the size of a normal person. And since we have different times of day, this is zoomed in so you can see that the background's animated, but we have different times of day, so this is sunset, and then this is nighttime. These are sounds for our game. Before interims, the sounds were really like, So before interims, our sounds were kind of too high-pitched and they were too light, so okay. Well, the punch after interims is a lot deeper with more reverb, so it sounds more like you're actually hitting a big metal robot rather than just a person. And then that's the old impact sound. There's like no echo, it's kind of light. New one's a lot better. And then we also added cool voice lines, so.
Ready?
Music. Okay, there's 3 songs in our game. There's an intro song, there's a battle theme, and there's an ending song. You're gonna play like 5 seconds from each. That's the intro. That's the battle song, and this is the end song.
So as we mentioned before, we want to make the game more slow, want to make the game more variant and more engaging, rather than just smash the button as fast as you can. So we add the hit stone, we add more takeaways so that they need to communicate with their teammates to plan out the strategy.
We also encountered quite a few bugs while we were learning to use the Jammo drum, such as
Cool. Cool, moving on to accomplishments. We had good project pacing as well as good planning and team communication. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Welcome to the journey to the end of your lifetime. It's Team 12's Jack's Ascent.
Hello. We are Team. Hello, we are Team 12, Dead Sheep Studios. This is our game, Jack's Ascent. It's a VR horror game. I'm Emily. I'm a producer and artist.
I'm James, I'm an artist. I'm David, the sound guy.
I'm Camille, programmer.
I'm Jeremy, the programmer. I'm Sam, programmer. So, the setting is 50 years ago, there was a mining operation in a mysterious site where the digging operation team found a secret bunker. And what's below that bunker? None other than the gateway to hell.
So now you are Jack, and you have been wrongly sentenced to your own bug-filled hell. And now you have to make your way up and hope that you can get to the bunker at the top unscathed. Here's our demo.
So our initial pitch for this game was heavily inspired by another climbing horror game called White Knuckle, and the main premise for our game is essentially climb up while avoiding / fending off the evil monsters trying to eat you. And we initially wanted to have different themes for each level, but then later on we decided on just the main theme of spiders and insects. And we also chose VR because we believe that it's the best for immersive horror experience, and it also emulates the physical activity of climbing the best.
So here is the overall layout of our game levels. The first level we are going to talk about is the tutorial level, and here is a piece of gameplay video. On the next slide, we have some main mechanics showcases. So this is one of the early demo of on the PC. The main mechanics is basically using the VR controller to grab on the jugs and pull the player's self up. And on the right, we have a binary dot, which we smooth out the smooth out the camera in order to decrease the motion sickness.
So designing sound effects, especially for the grab ones, I made it really fleshy to make it almost uncomfortable for the player, as they should be grabbing onto others' hands. So that's why it's a fleshy feel to give the player more immersion in that they're grabbing onto hands.
For the player's weapon, we ended up choosing a gun because of its compatibility with the VR trigger. What we did was we placed these all around the map so the player has easy access in case they ever run into an enemy. When the player shoots and hits an enemy, the enemy will recoil and retreat, but will not be killed to keep the tension high. And here's a demo. So here are our assets, and this is the player hand grab animation as well as the gun and the holster that the player can put the gun in while they climb.
So before the interims, here is the first design for a tutorial. It was simply a tower with rocks protruding out where the players could grab. It's meant to be where the players can learn the mechanics. And we received feedback that our first tutorial was too dark and too low resolution, so then we retextured it, and the result is the image in the aftersun. And moreover, we added some more assets to make the scene more lively, such as fossils, and we also retextured the hand to make it more flesh-like.
And here's one of the BGMs, it's called Lerna. This is one that was played in the demo, and this is the main menu theme. So designing the soundtrack, I didn't want to outright frighten the player, but rather give them an eerie and uneasy feeling as they enter this world of Jak.
On to our second level, it is the spider level, also called the caves.
So the caves is essentially a really spacious room with holes in the walls where spiders could seemingly crawl out of. And this is essentially the first actually scary room of our game, since this is where the players first encountered actual enemies. And our first design had very similar issues with the first design of our tutorial, that being too dark and low resolution, so then these images are the retextured version.
So the first enemy the player encounters are the spiders. The spider only tracks moving fast objects, that's why the player is forced to cross slowly through this level in order to feel the horror vibe. On the next slide, we have some spider models. As you can see, all the models are separated because the spider animation is controlled by code in order to fit the uneven terrains.
The second enemy you will see are the lanternflies, which is a reference to the bugs you can typically see here in Pittsburgh. What they do is they first spawn in clusters of eggs, and then when the player approaches and gets too close, the eggs will explode and the lanternflies will emerge. After that, the lanternflies will start to chase the player and eventually obscure their vision. Here's some more art assets we added after we got some feedback from interns. They said that we needed to enhance our ambience in order to make it a little spookier. So we added some faces as well as some bones. As you can see, the faces are a bit disturbed, so it kind of reminds the player that they are indeed in hell.
As for the spider level specifically, it was a really big room, but it was super empty, so then we added some bigger assets, such as the pillar and also the cages.
The third level is the tunnel. This level is made of 3 distinct tunnels which player could choose which one to climb in. Here's the demo, and you can see this is a really close and narrow place which can create a sense of impression.
Yeah, so when designing these tunnels, we wanted the player to feel more claustrophobic, and we also put limited rests along the way in order to induce a sense of panic, as the players would need to climb while fighting off the monsters.
The first enemy in this level is the mouse worm. When the mouse worm will be triggered from the start of the tunnel, and when this is the demo. And when the player grab on the first hand, the mouse worm will come up from the cage of the spider level and start chasing the player with a constant speed. And the player could avoid detection by just climbing faster. The second enemy is the flying centipede. The player stands on some specific cliffs near the end of the tunnel. The centipedes will fly directly to the player and randomly move in for direction twice, and the player could kill them in that period, or they will be killed.
And this is the second BGM I made for the song, for the game. It's called Lost. And as you can hear from previous demos, this soundtrack will play occasionally when the player is climbing through hell. And this ambience or the soundtrack is mainly there to provide the player with and keep them on their toes, even when at times where actions can be lacking.
So the fourth level is called the Maw. And this was inspired by real-life caves where they have stalactites, and those are the kind of sharp things coming down from the roof. This is a picture of the level. These stalactites that the player grabs on allows the player to move on to the next level. Now for the 5th level, which is the bunker.
Here's the third BGM I made. It's called Edition Finales, translating to the final judgments. And for this one, I went for waltz, to sort of symbolize the dance the player might be having with the monsters as they go under chase. And to emulate that vibe, I went for a creepy ballroom.
Now actually for the 5th level, the bunker.
Okay, so the bunker is a bunker. And the bunker is desolate, it's empty, it's rusty, it's forgotten, but it's not the most welcoming bunker, but the bunker still has a sense of warmth. So this bunker symbolizes an end for Jack's journey and relief from hell.
So for some closing remarks, overall, we are really proud of how the game ended up. However, some things we could have changed include adjusting the players' the level size, because some of the levels came out a little too big, and also accounting for different player heights, because some players may be a little shorter, a little taller, so we would need to adjust the grab for that. But yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Okay, last but not least, a team that put their heart and soul into their game, literally, Team 13.
Hi everyone, we're Team Mania, and we bring forward our game, Pentamania. I'm Rena, the artist/producer.
I'm Aaron, the sound designer.
I'm Ala, programmer.
I'm Brogan, the other artist.
I'm Dylan, a programmer.
And I'm Lillian, a programmer.
So, what is Pentamania? Pentamania is a first-person VR role-playing alchemy game where you play as a psycho-alchemist to make potions and summon Cthulhu. And Cthulhu is, like the first photo on the side, a really scary alien god from under the sea, and its presence will make people crazy. And you can see in our original game loop, we would make multiple Cthulhu-style gods. That is out of scope. So this is why we changed it to an alchemy central game, and Dylan will introduce the alchemy part.
Originally, Pentamania was a game about following a recipe book very closely, but after interims and after doing paper playtests, we realized that that wasn't actually that fun. So to encourage more player freedom and exploration, we introduced a system of elements, where each ingredient would have elements, and you'd combine them to make potions. But that system also proved very complicated, so we needed a way to convey that information to the player.
And that was done through the book. The book might be one of the most insane elements of this game, and it consumed me for my entire time after entrance. It is 39 pages long and contains literally every single facet of the entire game. It has every ingredient described, it has every recipe, it has every crafting machine, and they are all in great detail. You can just tell from a brief look at the images what's going on in the ingredients. You can reference the bars at the bottom to tell the elemental compositions of these ingredients, but if you take the time to read it all, you'll get a lot of flavor text, world building, random references, and add a lot more depth to the game as a whole.
the net and here's I come. With the potions inside, I can summon Cthulhu and rule the world. I should collect a few bottles for you. It's my reviews. Progress.
One of the pieces of feedback that we got in terms of sound after interims was that the sound could use more world building. So one thing that we all came up with was adding voice lines. Voice lines help provide player feedback while also expanding the world building. For example, this voice line plays when you enter the game for the first time.
Finally, I have the Necronomicon. With the potions inside, I can summon Cthulhu and rule the world.
All of our voice lines are done by our programmer Dylan. He's very good. For every time the player brews a potion incorrectly, there's also voice lines that play, and also there are some voice lines that help guide the player towards what they did wrong. So,
Damn it! I'm getting nowhere. I need to be more careful about what I put in.
There are also voice lines for when a player brews a potion correctly. Every single potion in this game has their own unique voice line that plays the first time the player brews it, sort of push the player in the right direction. For example,
Perfect.
This is the voice line for the decay potion. And every subsequent brewing will play a generic voice line success.
Progress.
So in Pentamania, we have a variety of different ingredients, and in code, we need to be able to handle all of them. Each ingredient has a set of traits, different elements such as poison or chaos, and then when you throw these in the cauldron, they combine together. Then the cauldron checks if those traits add up to match certain recipes, and if they do, you get a successful potion.
And moving on to the art side of ingredients design, we started with some normal ingredients that you would expect, like flowers and then metals, and then we started getting a little crazy with magical and psychedelic mushrooms, the eyeballs, the unicorn horn and devil horn, and especially your soul. Yeah, that's an ingredient.
So, since the player is interacting with many different materials and ingredients, I gave sound effects to almost every single item type, including various plants, books, rock materials, more organic flesh-used materials, wood, and also glass bottles.
In Pentamania, we have a variety of crafting machines. This is because just having a bunch of ingredients just isn't quite enough freedom. So we need to have ways for the player to manipulate those ingredients and change the elements that are attached to them. We have 3 different crafting machines. We have the mortar and pestle, which lets you grind up your ingredients to get more granular control over how much you add. We have the Bunsen burner, which lets you aggravate the ingredients with heat to increase their weakest elements, adding more flexibility. And we have the crystal ball, which lets you transmute ingredients into their opposite and get access to elements you otherwise wouldn't be able to use.
In modeling those crafting machines, we had to make sure that they were actually modular and functional. So, for example, the mortar and pestle, you can take out the pestle and grind up things. The spoon fits inside the cauldron and lets you stir it up. And the Bunsen burner has a plate that lets you put the ingredients on it. We also made some other items in the scene, like the clock and the shelf, that serve other purposes. The clock actually reflects the real world time, because you can't easily tell what time it is and you can get lost in VR. And the shelf can store the ingredients, and there's also a ladder that attaches to it so you can climb up and reach higher shelves.
So, all of the crafting machines have their own individual sounds. For example, the cauldron plays the sound when more than one ingredient is placed inside. Sort of a bubbling sound. And for the potion brewing process, there are two things that can happen. Either you brew a potion correctly, where there will be a real ding, or you could brew incorrectly, whereas the potion and the cauldron will explode. The mortar and pestle also has a grind sound. The Bunsen burner can be switched, burned, and any object that passes through it will produce a fire sound. Also, the crystal ball has a unique ambience. It has its own ambience that plays on loop in the scene. And any object that passes through it will produce a sound.
But all of these items wouldn't really work as well without the environment. You can see an early concept that we had here, because Pentamania takes place in a single room. So we wanted to really feel cozy, lived in, a little bit claustrophobic and a little bit creepy, with splatters everywhere, and really feeling like a crazy person lives in this house. You can see what we looked like when we had our concept in color, and what it looked like when modeled blankly in Maya. And then the full implemented version in Unity with shaders and fully textured everything in the scene. We really tried to make it feel like someone actually authentically lived there and contribute really to our world building.
Oh. Post-processing and lighting. As you can see in the first photo, it's a room full of eyeballs. That's a photo that we found with no post-processing and lighting. And the second one is when we added something that we thought looked good in Unity, and we realized in VR, no. You would be overstimulated and get crazy motion blurs and stuff. So on the last two photos, it's when we try to redo the lighting and post-processing, making it so that the player feels it's immersive, and at the same time in VR it looks great. And post-processing is like a filter you put on camera.
So in order to contribute more to the environment of our game, we decided to add the main juice of it, which is the effects. So as you can see, we included a cannon flame to re-add to the ambience of it. We included a poof and bubbling on the cauldron to reassure that the players actually making the potions, and then a dust particle effect for when you use the mortar or pestle.
Other than the ordinary particle effects, we want to make sure that all the crafting machines are well marked. So we made specific, different visual effects for all of the crafting machines, which makes sure that the player knows they are the essential object within the game. All the VFX are done in the visual effects graph in the Unity, and there are some other special materials, such as the liquid inside the cauldron and the soil material are done with the shader graph. And we also have a task system to guide the player and let them know what to do next. After you finish a task, another task will be assigned, and there's a tentacle comes out. And all the tasks are requesting specific potions that the player will need to make. And this is also related to the recipe book, which is mentioned before. After you finish the task, a new page will be unlocked in the recipe book.
You might be wondering, well, where did Cthulhu go? This is what we did with Cthulhu. We kind of cut it down because we realized modeling a whole monster is a little bit out of scope. But at the end of the game, the Cthulhu would crawl out the magic circle, as you can see, and kill the player a little.
There's also a cool tentacle sound.
So, that's the end of the game and the UI design. Well, what we tried to do with the UI design is make sure that the start and the end menu capture the full gameplay loop. It's basically the potions, you throw it on a magic circle, and the Cthulhu breaks out. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
14th presentation in here, so if there are any representatives from this 14th team who would like to make themselves known, please take the stage. I think the secret got out a couple days ago, so you might see that there are more than 6 here, but also we had jobs, so get over it. Overwork will be made available on HIO later today. Never mind. It'll be made available to you at some point. Anyway, yeah, in an exercise of trying to work along with you guys and, I don't know, flex our muscles a little bit, we have been trying to do something in secret. So, more these guys than me. I had bigger fish to fry, but, oh yeah, Michael would like to say something.
If you've ever wanted to experience what it's like to be in this program from the other side, you can play this game.
Or, I don't know, get hired. Thank you, Team 14. Yeah. I'm Colin. I have been acting as head TA for the past couple weeks. One last thing before I hand it off to Chris to say goodbye to everybody. Some of the TAs and faculty took the opportunity to make some additional awards for teams that we thought achieved outstanding things that deserve special recognition. So I got more papers to hand out. The first of these, the Most Polished Game Award for recognizing, oh, these are different than I thought. All right, sorry. We would like to recognize the achievements of Donut Duel for its refined visual aesthetic, cohesive mechanics, and delicious theming. Yeah. achievements of Journey to the Nest for its visually attractive world that players want to spend time in and its fun and elegant mechanics. I got the pun like 5 minutes ago. Receiving the Most Immersive Gameplay Award, we would like to recognize the developers of Oblivicy for its stunning 3D models, liminal lighting, give the Most Impressive System Award to the developers of Route 88 for the team's creation and use of a flexible development tool that streamlined the design process and complemented the exceptional music and art. To award the Most Innovative Use of Platform Award to the developers of Scrap for pushing the boundaries
team effort like we have. I mean, I'm honored to be the director of this. I've done it for 13 years in a row, which is a great honor for me, but it can't be done by just me or even just the TAs. There's the staff at the ETC, which hosts us. So I just want to give a round of applause for all the staff at the ETC who support us. And I'd like to bring down the faculty who are here, Mo and Ricardo and Tom. Come on down. Ruth Conley joined us this year, but Ruth isn't here today, so let's give Ruth an applause. You want to say a couple words?
I just want to say thank you to all the students. You guys put in a lot of work. You have too much to be proud of. Please keep in touch. You have our emails. I'd rather you be a best than a mystery. By that I mean email me a lot. If you have questions, portfolio issues, whatever, just stay in touch. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just want to say, think about where you started and where you ended this summer and enjoy that journey along the way. Keep going, keep drawing, keep coding, keep making 3D models, and of course keep making games. Don't forget to touch some grass along the way, and I mean real grass, not shader grass. And underline what Ricardo said, stay in touch, we're here to help, and send us your portfolios, we'll give you feedback.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you. I think that there was really some inspirational work that happened this short summer semester in 6 weeks, like watching these teams evolve, watching parents, watching your children evolve and grow and become just really kind of wonderful, creative, and cooperative team members. You really see what can happen when really bright, wonderful people start to work together. So I think the results today speak for themselves. And thank you for letting me be part of it.
And we always have to acknowledge all the passion and hard work that Chris puts into the program. So I think let's give Chris.
Thanks. The last and often overlooked group that we need to thank are the parents. You trust us, take care of your children for 6 weeks. You hope that the summer will be transformational, and I think every NHSGA student in the room will say they grew and changed in some fundamental way. And just want to give the parents a round of applause for trusting us to do this and to work with your kids. So now we're pretty much done. What we're going to do is, normally what happens is parents and students come down, talk with us, say goodbye. We have a photographer here who can take pictures of any combinatorial group that you wish to have us a photograph of. I'm not sure how you're going to figure out how to get the images to them. Maybe we'll just put them in a big folder. We're doing this for the first time, in case you can't figure this out, right? But the goal is to help you document the moment in a way that we can distribute to everybody so you can gather the images without having to run around and with your phone and whose phone and borrow a phone. So come on down, say goodbye, and as Mo said, stay in touch. The NHSGA, as you can tell, we always have or hope to have alums as part of the TA group, because we are a family. We do stay in touch with our graduates. So thank you very much, and I hope you had a wonderful summer.